Hi, this is Mark. Welcome back to my channel. What burns my ass? This is the channel where I tell you the things that burn my ass. You tell me whether or not they burn your ass too. So this video is going to be about religion, Donald Trump, the Republican majority Congress, and the next 4 years. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's going to be going to be a bad decision on the part of Donald Trump and Congress to start pushing a lot of religious values right off the bat. Because if they do that, the midterm elections can turn into a big blue wave, which could turn into a defeat in 2028. And I liken that to the backlash to what's going on in the gay community now. Because the gay community fought about 10 years ago, roughly 10 years ago, for the right to gay marriage. And that was the pinnacle of the rights that the gay community was fighting for. And once they achieved that, and Chicken Little and the rest of the American society figured out that the sky isn't going to fall by allowing gay marriage, then, the support for the gay community increased greatly to a pretty good majority. Now, that is starting to degrade over the last couple of years since COVID. And that's because of this huge push for DEI and the trans rights community, because they've attached themselves to the wagon of the gay rights community. And they're, to me, totally separate issues, because sexual orientation is a completely different issue than gender identity. And do I believe trans people deserve all the rights in the world? Yes. If you're truly a trans person and you're happy as becoming the opposite gender, then I support you having every right that you deserve. But at the same time, you've kind of taken over the gay community and associated us with a drive that's gone a little too far by pushing, changing children's gender before the age of 10 and 18 years old. And there's been a big backlash on that. And around the world, the whole theory on that has changed, except for in the United States, that's slowly changing here as well. But I'm going to liken that to what could happen to the Republicans if they push too hard on religion, because I also think that's what caused the backlash on the midterms prior to this last election was abortion. And they pushed it at the wrong time. I mean, should there be a wrong time to save babies? No, but the point is by what they did, they dragged out the ability even longer for conservatives to be able to push their agenda a little faster, a little quicker. So it was a dumb idea. It was just really lousy timing on the part of the Republican Party and our Supreme Court. Anyways, so this first segment is going to be about the United States and its foundations and the fact that there are so many people that believe that our country was founded by Christians and founded on Christian values. Now, the Christian values part, I kind of believe, but not all our founders were Christians, which is going to be quite surprising. And you're going to find this out because the first segment involves a Dr. Greg Fraser, and he is the dean of the John P. Stead School of Humanity. He's also a professor of history and political studies. He's also a author of the religious beliefs of the book, the religious beliefs of America's founders. And in there, he discusses the religious makeup of what he calls the key eight. The ones that wrote our Constitution and the ones that wrote the Declaration of Independence. And so in this video, he's going to discuss the founding of our country. And he's a little long-winded, so I had to really shorten this video quite a bit. And you're going to see even in the small segment, he's long-winded in the small segment I kept. So I'm going to include a link to his video in the description because it's quite interesting to find out the backgrounds of our founders and their religious beliefs. So I'm going to include that in the description. But let's go ahead and take a listen to him, to this professor, Dr. Fraser. And I think you're going to find the beginning of our country quite interesting.
As in anything, I'm sure you've experienced in meetings and so forth, when you get a group of people together, all the people are attending, but there are a few who are influential. There are a few who are the ones that are making decisions and moving the discussion and so forth. And the same thing is true with the American founders. Some were more influential than others. And so those are the ones that I make claims about. those 8 guys are the ones I make claims about. They're the ones that I've studied in depth, virtually everything that they wrote about religion. And when I say the most influential, in particular, they were the most responsible for the founding documents, for the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So you probably want to know who those 8 people are, so I'll just mention that quickly. So John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin were the 3 most responsible for the Declaration of Independence. And then James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and then a couple of guys that you've probably never heard of, unless you read my book, James Wilson and Gouverneur Morris. Those 4 were arguably the most influential concerning the Constitution. And then, of course, the 8th one is the 500-pound gorilla in the room, George Washington, who didn't necessarily influence either the Declaration or the Constitution, but certainly was a leading figure in putting the whole system into place, along with Alexander Hamilton. So those are the 8 founders that I studied and that I argue were the most influential founders in terms of setting up America through the founding documents in particular, but also putting things into place. And those founding documents, of course, are about ideas, and religious beliefs are a certain and important category of ideas. And in this context, I argue that both the right and the left politically are wrong in what they say about the founders. The left says that the founders were deists or rank secularists, and they were not. You have to go pretty far down the list of founders to find any deists at all. I could name a couple of deists, but you might not even know who they are. So most of the founders were not deists. Most of them were not rank secularists. They were more secular than a church member today, for example, but not a rank secularist. So they weren't deists, they weren't rank secularists. On the other hand, though, I argue that the right is also wrong. They weren't Christians. There were Christians among the founders, for sure, but none of the 8 most influential founders were Christians. They were what I have termed theistic rationalists.
So there you go. That's his view on the founders and their religious views. And it's quite interesting. And like I said, I'm going to try to include the link in the description. I think it's like a 2-hour or more longer video. So you're in for a long haul if you click on that link. But you can tell he's a very intelligent man. He's a professor, and he's a dean of college. So he has to be pretty smart. But anyways, it's interesting to find out the religious backgrounds of the people that founded our country. Anyways, the next segment is going to be Vivek Ramaswamy and his views on the First Amendment. And that's the right to religion and its importance in the American culture, its importance in our American society today, and the importance for the future of our country. And of course, it's the driving factor of why a huge portion of people came across our border once Joe Biden opened it up over the last 4 years, because we are considered one of the greatest countries in the history of the world. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this gentleman. And I hope he runs in 2028, because he's a great orator. He's a great debater. He knows how to knock down people's ridiculous views on certain topics without making them feeling foolish or stupid. He's good at bringing it. I think he's got a strong future in our government and in the Republican Party. Let's go ahead and take a listen to him and let me know what you think.
So this has nothing to do with what the government is supposed to do intrusively in your life. But the irony is you don't have governments going around punishing people for being atheists today, not in the United States. But what you do have is you have a system that actually penalizes people for their religious beliefs often as well. And I think that we need to restore that culture of religious freedom so people who are people of faith are able to practice their faith without criticism or the government impeding their ability to do so. You saw that during the COVID-19 pandemic. I could give you multiple other examples of where that's true. But I think if I ask myself, myself, do I think our society would be stronger and better off if we revived that culture of people who believe in God being able to express themselves in an honest and authentic way? I do think we would actually be better off for it. And that's actually the main takeaway point from that chapter, rather than trying to make the case for deism over atheism, which is a debate as old as human beings are.
So there you go. He's right. Being, the ability to be whatever you are. If you want to be an atheist, you want to be an atheist. You can be an atheist in this country if you want to. If you want to believe in, if you want to be a Buddhist, you want to be a Muslim. If you want to be a Christian, you want to be a Catholic. You want to be a Jew. That's all okay in this country, and I think that's important to the future of our country, and I think that's one of the things that made it so successful. I think the pullback from religion is one of the reasons why people feel our country is crumbling. And I think that's why, because, Donald Trump has projected himself as being religious. I think that's why a lot of religious people put a lot of faith and voted for him during this last election, that their belief that he's going to bring some sense of Christianity back to our country. Now, the next segment is going to be about Keith Hegseth, which is the controversial nomination by Donald Trump to the head of the Department of Defense. And the reason that these controversial was because A, he was a Fox News commentator. So if you hate Fox News, you're probably not going to like him very much. It's also because he's also supposedly a known alcoholic and he's still fighting that addiction, which is probably not a great way to start a job, having an addiction. So those controversies were brought up right off the bat. But I think he was in both Afghanistan and in Iraq. So he has a lot of military background. But this is his religious views and his discussion about the decline of Christianity in this country. Now, I believe that the Department of Defense is a secular position. So I don't think he should really bring a lot of religion into that position unless there's a wartime situation where there's going to be some compassion needed for certain decisions made during wartime. But other than that, it should be a secular position. But anyways, we're going to listen to his discussion about Christianity and the decline in this country and his belief of how they can bring it back.
Welcome back. Well, how long will we be one nation under God? An alarming study by Pew Research found that Christianity could possibly become a minority religion in the United States as early as 2045. Look at these numbers. In the 1990s, 90% of adults identified as Christians. Then in 2007, it dropped to 78%. And most recently, only 64% say they are Christian. Our nation's faith is diminishing at an alarming rate. The question is why? I believe we have only ourselves to blame. I often hear parents and grandparents say, I worked hard so that my kids would live better than I did and have what I didn't have. The World War II generation rightfully said we fought a world war so that our kids wouldn't have to, so their kids could live in peace and prosperity. Previous generations of Americans did a great job passing along peace, prosperity, leisure, entertainment, and progress in medicine, science, and technology. They passed those to their posterity. But along the way, previous generations passed along all of the wants of the world and not enough of the needs. They took for granted the main ingredient that underwrites all of those worldly advancements, and that's faith. Faith in something greater than ourselves. The belief that God is the architect of our good fortune and the bedrock of our blessings. Nothing else matters or even makes sense without a sincere reckoning with our Creator. It's the single most important thing I can teach my kids, and you, yours. Somewhere along the line, we stopped prioritizing Christianity in our homes and within our families. We took it for granted. I know I did for far too long, assuming that the faith of our forefathers would just self-perpetuate. So Christian schools shrunk. Church attendance plummeted. Prayer outright banned in public life. Christians allowed this to happen in exchange for convenient and godless public schools, vapid and decadent entertainment, and endless rabbit holes of social media.
So there you go. And he's right. there's a lot of decadence on the internet, and unfortunately, children are exposed to that way too early in this country, because there's a lot of parents that don't know how to monitor their kids' internet use. So kids learn things a little too early in this country, and actually around the world nowadays. So that's a scary premise right there. But like I said, he's going to be head of the Department of Defense, and his personal life that he's talking about here is his personal life, and that should remain separate. But again, in a wartime situation, he may have to rely on his Christian beliefs to make some certain wartime decisions. But that's completely up to him. That's up to that's if he actually ends up being nominated or what's the word I'm trying to think of? Confirmed. So anyways, the next segment is going to be with this Dr. Burge gentleman. And this is where he's going to discuss about coming out as an atheist. And he lives in Texas, and most of his family and friends are Christians or Catholics. And I liken it to coming out as a gay person, because it's very similar where, you avoid certain topics when your friends are talking about hot women and going on dates and who are you dating. And so you avoid those topics as a gay person until, you come out of the closet. And it's kind of the same thing he went through coming out of the closet as an atheist. And, if you're going to be an atheist, stick to your guns, and unless somehow someone's able to change your mind about religion or there being a higher power, hey, I got to respect your choice. That's your decision as a human being. And you got to live with the repercussions if there is a deity or a higher power. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and listen to this. And it's interesting to hear his story and his experience as being ostracized as an atheist.
I was also taught that I was incredibly lucky, incredibly privileged to be born in America and to be born into a Christian family. There was really no better lot in life than the one that I was handed. So on one hand, I felt very lucky to be raised the way that I was and very privileged to be in the position that I was born into, but also felt like maybe somewhere out there people are trying to get at me. Maybe I'm going to be in danger if I step outside my Christian bubble. My life day to day growing up as a Christian didn't feel like the life of someone who was persecuted at every turn, and yet I was told that I was. It was a bit confusing to have those kind of mixed messages being sent to me. But something that did sink in was the idea that persecution could look like simple disagreement. That perspective, though, was significantly challenged when I eventually lost my faith and became an atheist in secret. Suddenly, I was terrified of having honest conversations with the people that I loved and trusted the most, much less people in my general community in East Texas, where I was living at the time. Never before had I had the experience where if I had revealed what I really thought, revealed my true identity to the people that I loved and trusted the most, I risked being severely socially ostracized, if not entirely cast out of my most important foundational social circles. After all, everyone that I knew and trusted founded their very identity in the idea that Jesus rose from the dead and wanted to have a personal relationship with them. I had rejected that relationship, so what would that mean for their perception of me after finding that out?
So I have no problem with atheists. As long as he doesn't belittle me, if he knows I have faith and vice versa, and I'm his friend, if you want to be an atheist, that's your prerogative. That's none of my business. That's between you and your creator, you and the lack of your creator. So, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think anybody should be ostracized for either believing or not believing, either way. That's my big problem with Bill Maher, which I'm going to discuss in 2 segments from now, about his repeated knockdown of people who have faith. But this next segment is going to be with Charlie Kirk. I'm going to call it the meeting of the two Kirks, because this is involving Kirk Cameron, who left acting as a child, and he's going to discuss the fact that he sent his son to Charlie Kirk, who's the other Kirk in this situation, he sent his kid to this Standing Point USA rally that they had in Florida, Turning Point USA rally that they had in Florida, that Kirk Cameron's kid attended and seemed to like very much. And anyways, these are the two Kirks discussing religion and faith and Turning Point, and it's very interesting because I haven't seen Kirk Cameron in a lot. He looks pretty good for he's holding up pretty well for a guy his age. And listen, you got to give a guy a lot of credit who gave up fame and fortune for his belief in a higher power. That's pretty amazing. That's somebody who really, really believes, obviously. So I got to give him a lot of credit. But let's go ahead and listen to these two discuss their relationship and their kids and Turning Point USA.
It was the largest ever young conservative gathering in American history, and that's exactly why most people don't even know what happened, because the media refused to cover it. They don't like showing that there's people that are gathering around first principles and God-granted rights and the Constitution and free speech and American exceptionalism. And so super pleased that your son had a great time, and we've been hearing lots of stories like that. Praise God.
Well, that's what I love about what you do too, is you're not only motivating people with great speakers and cool events for young people, but you're also educating them about the things that they're often not hearing in their schools, particularly public schools for sure, but even private schools, even faith-based schools are not teaching these kinds of principles, without which we don't have a republic like we do. One of those principles is religious freedoms. When I was in school as a kid, I didn't really learn much about that at all. In fact, I wasn't religious. And so for me, I didn't even really care about the subject. But to our founders, it was absolutely essential. Why is religious freedom the mother of all freedoms?
First and foremost, it's the freedom to worship your own creator, the reason why you exist.
So there you go. That's Charlie Kirk's take on life. You exist to worship your creator, and for a lot of people that's true. A lot of people that's true. Obviously, that's true for Kirk Cameron because that's how he was able to give up a career for his faith. I think that's pretty amazing. And so, anyways, so we're going to move on to the funny segment of this show because I love Bill Maher. He is extremely funny. As I've said multiple times during this video and other videos, he just makes me mad when he puts down people who have faith, because nobody knows, not even scientists. Is there a higher power? How do we come about in the universe? Is there something keeping us the perfect distance from the sun that brought together atoms, that created the genetic codes, that created all the atoms across the world? None of us know that. So it's hypocritical and just wrong to belittle those who do have faith if you don't want them to belittle you because you don't have faith. So let's just live together and live and learn from each other. I think that's the most important lesson we can take away from this video and almost any of the other videos that I've put out, and a great takeaway from a lot of religious lessons. So let's go ahead and take a listen to Bill Maher. His take on Easter and several other things are pretty funny. So let's go ahead and take a listen to him, and so that way we can end this video on a light note.
And finally, new rule, you shouldn't be able to talk about DEI anymore in America. DEI, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, without including atheists. Thank you, a few of you. Atheists, we're approaching a third of the population now. I shouldn't have to beg for this, for God's sake. It's outrageous. There are this many of us, and there is still zero representation in government. Congress has 535 members, and only a handful will even sheepishly admit they're religiously unaffiliated. The Supreme Court is 2 Protestants, 1 Jew, and 6 people more Catholic than the Pope. And even intellectual presidents like Obama, who admit to being secular humanists, have to pretend to be religious. No one has been able to admit their shameful secret, I don't believe in ghosts. Now, next Sunday is Easter, so enjoy. First you've heard of it? Okay. Yeah, enjoy if that's your thing. Bunny rabbits that shit eggs to celebrate the Son of God. Whatever floats your ark. But it's not fair that people who belong to one of the big religions, they all get this cosmic personal day where the world revolves around them. I mean, here we are in the middle of the great egg shortage, and yet next Sunday we're going to take the few eggs we have and hide them in the yard. There's also now a movement for schools to officially recognize Ramadan, the Muslim month of fasting, and I'm all for it, or anything that gets our fat kids to eat less. But while approximately 3 million Americans celebrate Ramadan, 100 million say they have no religion at all. What the fuck? Where's our day? Is that really so much to ask, that this many people get one day a year when we recommit ourselves to observable reality? One day with no atonement, no corpse reanimation, no fasting, no tree in your house, no big rock to circle, no dirt on your forehead, no candles to light, and please, God, no fruitcakes.
So there you go. That's Bill Maher. And, you know, listen. So this is how I'm going to end this video. You know, if you're atheist, don't knock those who have faith, because that burns my ass. And if you're religious, leave the atheists alone, because if you start mocking them and letting them, you're going to get karma. And that burns my ass. So we can all peacefully coexist in this country, whether you're religious or not. And if you can't live side by side with people who have different points of view, you burn my ass. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. I want you to like and subscribe, because if you don't, again, that burns my ass. So I appreciate you listening, and keep on watching. And I just keep hoping this channel will grow. It's growing very slowly, but I need you all to spread the word. And if you don't, you're burning my ass. So anyways, thanks for watching.